Hey, this is Carla.
And this is Jasmine.
And you're listening to
Cracking the Coconut, where we tackle taboo conversations in the Filipino community.
By cracking one coconut at a time.
Wow. Okay, well, welcome back.
Welcome back!
That's a way to welcome back, ourselves to the set. Back to recording. It has been a freaking while, Carla, but we are here and in the building.
Queer or...
So we are here, and you guys, it's been a long time since we last recorded an episode, and life has just been lifing.
Life has been lifing. I can't explain it any other way, as then we've just been booked and busy. Like, we've been really busy with just life, personal, professional, sexual, everything. It's
a lot of things going on.
It's been a lot.
But, that's not for lack of not wanting to be here and give the content out to you guys. We have been active weekly on Kumu.
Yes.
Where we have our Sipping the Coconut segment every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're in the Philippines, it's at 10 a.m.
11 a.m.
I always get it wrong. One of these days, I'm going to get it right.
And then that's the time we switch the time, and then it's going to be completely different.
11 a.m. Philippine time in the morning there on Wednesdays, where we kind of have a watered down version of our podcast.
Yeah.
And we're still talking and interacting with you guys, tackling and cracking these nuts.
Yeah. Speaking of cracking nuts and Kumu, the cool thing about Kumu, if you've never joined us on any of our live streams before, is that when you join in on our Kumu lives, you can ask questions and be part of the conversation in real time. We see the comments that come in, we'll give shout outs, and then also, of course, like if you want to join in or if we want to ask a question to each other, we're also asking the audience members as well. So you can truly join in and give your 2 cents, whether it's something that you agree with us or something that you don't and you just want to give your opinion or give your stand on something. It's a great way to kind of just like be part of the conversation and keep talking and interact and connect with each other. So yeah,
definitely. So we have big love for Kumu, and the Albeas, our cousins who have put us on to Kumu and introduced us to that community. And speaking of the Kumu community, we actually saw them this past weekend out and about in the streets.
Yeah, so we saw the Kumu fam not necessarily out on the streets, but under a tent in a park in downtown San Francisco at the 29th Pistahan Festival and Parade. Jasmine and I got to be part of a float, capture some content for the radio station, and walk around the festival grounds, see some really cool vendors, food, jewelry, art, print, everything. And of course, the Kumu fam were there too. So it's just like a really, really great time.
Definitely. It was cool seeing the Kumu community, because if you guys have never been on Kumu or seen them or interacted with them, they're just like a bunch of cool Filipinos who are really there, and heart and passion is for the community. And, seeing them interacting with, the Filipinos attending the Pistahan Festival, man, they got it, and they're doing really great stuff for our community. So shout outs to them. Yeah,
shout out to community. Shout out to Kumu. Shout out to One Down, our cousins Tessa, Leo, Sarah. But yeah, so this was actually my first time attending Pistahan ever. I've never been, but I know Jazz, you have. So can you tell me about some differences of when you went when you were younger or a few years ago to what it is now?
Yeah, I haven't been to Pistahan in many years. I think the last time I went, I was maybe 12.
Oh, wow.
So it's been a bunch of years, like 100 years ago. 29. It's been many, many years ago. And, to be honest, I don't really remember or have significant memories of the festival. Whether it was I didn't personally care, even though my family took me there, or I just didn't feel like I connected with the festival at the time. And I can't really remember if it was at Yerba Buena Gardens, which its current location is now, or if it was somewhere else located near the area. But, I don't really have very fond memories.
Oh, that's sad.
Which is crazy, right?
That's really sad.
But at the maybe I do have memories. It's just kind of all intertwined in like this bank of memories I have not touched in years. So it could be kind of scrambled, but you know, that kind of says a lot that nothing has really stood out to me, even though I have attended this festival in the past.
You know, to piggyback on that though, I do want to ask, because you haven't had any fond memories of Pistahan back when you were 12, I guess like close your eyes and just imagine yourself as a 12-year-old and where you were at 12, you know, possibly 7th, 8th grade, around that time. Were you connected to your Filipino culture at that time, or were you just, you know, playing basketball, going to school, and not really doing much with the culture? Because I remember when I was 12, I really wasn't connected to my Filipino culture. I mean, I knew I was Filipino, but I didn't see it as like the significant thing in my life. I didn't even really like eating Filipino food. You know, when I was 12, I was trying to like, I guess, assimilate. So do you think that's maybe why you didn't have fond memories of Pistahan when you were 12? Or was it like, I don't know, something completely different?
Well, I think I definitely didn't have a problem eating the food. I loved eating the Filipino food. All that dinigoan stuff, the bulaklaks, the buwads, all that, give it to me. But honestly, it's just because I wasn't aware of my culture.
Yeah.
The only thing I knew about Filipino culture, like I've shared in the past episodes, is, you know, my family at home, the language they spoke, and my family around me. That's all I knew. There wasn't any outreach that I personally made for myself. I mean, we didn't have like Google or, you know, Facebook at the time. And, you know, I'm sure we could have went to a library to research, but, you know, maybe I didn't think it was cool enough to research my culture and my history and my heritage. You
know what? Okay. This is it's on topic but off topic at the same time, because I feel like talking to a lot of Filipino-Americans growing up when they're younger, there's always a disconnect. Not all Fil-Ams, but you know, I feel like there's a lot of us that have this disconnect to our Filipino culture because we're trying to assimilate, or our parents don't teach us the language, or whatever it is. And we get older and then we start to realize, you know what, I am Filipino, I am proud, I'm gonna do some unlearning to relearn and some soul searching of what it means to be Filipino to ourselves. In other communities, like for example, maybe the Hispanic communities, the Black communities, I feel like their family members or their parents, grandparents, from the get-go, when they're young, they start teaching them of the importance of their heritage. I feel like there's less assimilation into white American society. You know, your niece, she's Filipino, but she's also part Black too, and like, you know, your sister does a good job of taking care of her curls and sharing that her curls are so important. The hairstyles of Black women are so important to the culture. So I feel like in other communities, it's really important to teach kids the importance of their heritage, but I feel like for a lot of Filipino Americans, it's the opposite. It's all about assimilating and trying to fit in, I guess you could say. Yeah,
man, I definitely can agree with that, because I've seen it firsthand that, you know, Filipinos, I feel like what Filipinos do in Filipino families, they want us to adapt. Obviously, well, everyone should adapt, otherwise you'll die. Adapt or die, you know? But I feel like in Filipino families, they want us to learn English and assimilate in American culture to be able to survive and make it. Whereas I feel like when it comes to, say, like Mexican cultures, say they teach their kids Spanish. So I haven't really seen Mexican families try as much to learn English and assimilate in the way Filipinos expect to, because I believe they, in their minds, they think, well, this is our culture and they're gonna get to know us, not us bend over for them, you know. And you definitely see in like even the way youngins speak, they know Spanish, they know the foods, you know, and they have no shame in speaking the language. And I think that's what's really cool about Spanish speakers. Like, they have no shame in speaking with their friends Spanish, their siblings Spanish, their parents Spanish. And I wish that Filipinos could have that same want to teach their kids and continue just language, because that could do so much and influence so much.
Yeah. Speaking of like language, so last week, a couple of days ago, we actually had some mixed global artists. And if you don't know Mixed Global, there's this huge like company, and they have a lot of Filipino artists under their clientele list. And so, you know, some of the Star Magic artists were on tour, and so they stopped by the radio station, and some of them were speaking Tagalog to each other. And even though I grew up in an Ilocano home, I feel like there was a part of me that wish I could have jumped in the conversation, or I know words here and there. So when I was replying back to emails, I threw in a couple of stuff, a little salamat there, a little ingat there. That's how I was able to kind of show my appreciation without full on speaking in Tagalog.
As you said earlier, it was your first time at Pistahan Festival. And actually, it's been the first time you've ever been to a Filipino festival, right?
Yes. So a couple of months ago, I did go to the Philippine Independence Day Festival at District 6 in San Francisco. So that was, I guess you could say, my first Filipino festival, besides like this one that I went to when I was in the Philippines. But it was more like a community block party, but festival-ish, I guess. But Pistahan was like the first full-fledged, like, big festival with a parade. And I mean like parade, I mean like street closures parade. Yeah, so that was pretty big. Cool. Yeah, go big. And I love it.
Some people would think that it's crazy that at your age now, this was your first ever Filipino festival.
Yeah, I mean, I could see how some people would think that might be odd. I know that there's some ignorant Filipinos that would probably use it against me and say, why in your late age are you just now going to a Filipino festival? Why aren't you have been going? Well, also you have to realize the circumstance of things, and like where, I mean, I spent the majority of my time in areas where even though there were a high volume of Filipinos, there were no Filipino parades or community festivities on Filipino culture, and heritage nights, things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And this is probably one of the largest festivals, Filipino festivals in America, and for it to be somewhere so accessible to us now, it's really special because not a lot of people are able to be around that.
Yeah, what's cool is, like we mentioned, this was the 29th Pistahan Festival and Parade. I was actually talking to one of the people who started the whole thing, and he's been on the community for a really long time. He's had a hand in Pistahan for a very, very long time, and we were talking about him during the pandemic, and he said yes, during 2020 we couldn't really have a full-on festival because of COVID, but they were still able to make it happen virtually. And I think that's really cool, and I think it takes a lot of dedication and also a lot of want and passion to keep this going for 29 years. Yeah, man. And as somebody who's worked for a time being in those digital virtual fairs, it is not easy to put together. Yeah. And it's also runs the fear of, are people really going to care about this now that it's online? Yeah. They could be doing something else, like binge watching How to Get Away with Murder or something. Call me out, why don't you?
Why do you think it's important to have these types of Filipino festivals in America?
Oof. I think it's so incredibly imperative to have cultural festivals throughout the U.S. because it allows people of that culture and heritage to share their culture with everyone else. I mean, we have lived in California for the majority of our life. I mean, you've been here your entire life. Yep. I've been here for a big chunk of my life. And we're very lucky in the areas of California that we live in. It is very, very diverse. We've always grown up with a diverse group of friends, classmates, everything like that. So on a day-to-day, immersing ourselves in culture, whether it's our own, whether it's the Indian culture, whether it's other Asian cultures, Black culture, we're able to go outside and experience it for ourselves. But for other areas that maybe it's predominantly white or predominantly one other culture or ethnicity, it's nice to have these festivals to kind of share the culture. Like, yes, there is a thing where cultural appropriation does happen, and I feel like sometimes gatekeeping certain things is okay, especially when there are like white people out there that try to take things that aren't theirs and try to pass it off as their own and totally whitewash it. That's not okay, but I am still down with sharing the culture so that way they know that like where certain things come from. So but yeah, it's just like, that's why I feel like it's so important for different types of communities to come together and to like celebrate one specific culture and learn more, eat food, and see vendors and just hang out with people. Like, I think that's so beautiful. And so I think it's so right.
It's so right.
It's so right.
So right. It reminds me of a time when I was at Washington, D.C. for Independence Day weekend. And my brother and his band for high school, they were actually part of the Independence Day parade in Washington, D.C. And I remember at the time there was this festival. What do they call that area outside of the White House?
Oh, the mall? The
Independence Mall or something?
Something like that. It's the mall. It's like this huge...
It's not even a mall. It's just a huge ass patch of grass. I always got so confused. The National Mall? I don't know.
Yes.
So there was this festival in the grassy ass mall. And I remember... So I didn't know of any festivities that was going on that weekend. I was just focused on the damn parade. And when the parade was over, we ended up at the mall. And there was all these white tents around. And I was like, oh, cool. It's a little festival happening. And, you know, I remember I saw this arepa, like a Colombian stand. And next to it was like some Chinese food and all that, and different cultural foods around. And I was just thinking, man, this is pretty dope. You know, there's a lot of food vendors from different cultures and different ethnicities in America. Like, this is truly celebrating America with a mix of what America has to offer, from its people to its food. And there was a lot of cool, like, international flavors and things going on. But it was just such like a false
narrative
depiction of how America really is. And I think that's something that really bothers me. And I've said it before, like, you know, we have this opportunity to blend ourselves with each other. And I feel like if we have better understanding and care for other people's cultures, then cultural appropriation would not exist.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's, like you said, there's a way to respect the culture without appropriating it.
Yes.
But I feel like that all starts with like knowledge.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's kind of sad in a way. Like, we're definitely privileged living in California, and we get to experience all these different types of cultures and learn, and, you know, not just food, but, you know, artwork and people. And I feel like when you really get to know people of other cultures, you're able to empathize with them. You know, I feel like if you say you live in a predominantly white community and you've never really met an Asian, and the only thing about Asians that you know is through media, and it could
like
be
Bruce Lee.
Yeah, it could even be skewed media where you think that all Asians are nerdy mathletes, you know, and I don't. That was the first stereotype. See, it's a stereotype though.
Yeah.
You know, but and then you hear all these negative rhetoric about, you know, COVID and it being the China flu and everything like that. But if you physically know someone of that ethnicity and are able to immerse yourself in their culture and learn more about them as a person and, you know, who they are, you're not going to think that way. You know, you're going to see them for who they are, and not, you know, just like the weird stereotypes that's portrayed on a TV show or anything like that.
Definitely. You know, and people got to understand, like, say there's a Chinese American, right? And they've never been to China, but their ethnic background is Chinese. Yeah. And someone goes up to them and says, fuck you, you're to blame for coronavirus and the world going to shit. You know, like, this person might not even work in medical. They could be your neighborhood mechanic. Yeah. You know, and a stranger can really approach them and be so harmful and hurtful when there's no relation to them with that. Yeah. They're just a human being walking the street. Just so happen to be Chinese, you know, ethnic background.
Kind of reminds me of some of the mean comments we would get on, more so on our TikTok page. Our TikTok page is popping. Oh, wow.
Wow, that's co-hostness right there. That is. Co-closeness.
Oh, are you flirting again?
No.
Oh. Not bad. But no, okay, so like we would get some cruel comments on our TikTok page. And I think it also comes from a place of hurt, a place of ignorance, and a place of misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, we've had this issue in the past where we try to explain to some Filipinos in the Philippines who I guess have this maybe romanticized versions of what it means to live in the US and what it means to be Filipino-American. And we try to explain, you know, how cultural appropriation here exists, how discrimination here exists. We could walk outside and get discriminated upon on our skin tone, even our name. Applying for jobs can be a whole obstacle course because we have ethnic names. And there's some Filipinos in the mainland who don't understand that, whether they don't refuse to believe it because it doesn't fit their narrative of what it means to be American. But it's really important to truly immerse yourself in other cultures. And I believe that being Filipino-American has its own culture in a way, because it's a blend of both Western American culture, but it's also Filipino as well. And it's really annoying, frustrating, and straight up mean when Filipinos in the Philippines say that I'm just American, when I'm Filipino too. I'm American too. I'm both. And it's crazy because it's like they don't understand. To them, they feel like I'm too American or too white. But here, I'm too ethnic. I'm too Asian. I'm not American enough because I don't fit that white American standard. It's crazy.
So there was this young boy who was in the Philippines, and he was at the market with his mom. He was probably about 4 or 5. But when he was at the market, he ended up getting lost and separated from his mother. And he had no identification on him. And so the authorities took him in and was kind of waiting around a couple of days to see if anyone claimed the boy. When that didn't happen, he ended up getting passed to like some organization or some group where he was able to get adopted by a family. But this family ended up being a white Australian family. Okay. So now he's grown. He's probably like in his late 30s, mid 30s. But he's brown. He is a brown Filipino man. He looks like a Filipino man, but he has an Australian accent, and he was raised by white Australian people. He has since then been able to reunite with his parents, which is really, really cool to see. I think I almost cried when I started watching this. But, you know, it's a very sentimental and really interesting story, right? But is he considered Filipino or is he considered Australian?
I feel like he's a mix of all. I feel like his nationality would be Australian, culturally Australian too, because Australians also have their culture as well. He also is Filipino, and it's possible to be many things all at once. You know, like we're Filipino-American, American-Filipino, but we also have, you know, you especially being born and raised in the Bay Area, you have Bay Area culture, you know, instilled in you as well. Like if I grew up in the South, I would have like a Southern type of culture as well. Wow.
Are you sure you're not from the South?
Well, I did live in Texas, so there's that
there you
too.
Go. A little Texas came out of there.
San Antonio. Yeah. You know how we get a lot of comments about just Fil-Ams not being Filipino and just saying some really ignorant, mean stuff. Do you think if they came here to the U.S. And got to experience one of these Filipino festivals like Pistahan and got to immerse themselves in not only their own culture as Filipinos, but also seeing that the Filipino culture and heritage in the U.S. is alive and it's well and people are so in tune with their Filipino connection, do you think that they would completely change their minds about how they feel about Filipino-Americans?
Yeah, I definitely think it would change their minds because there's no way as a Filipino you come out of a festival like that and feel like shit or feel like you want to hate.
Yeah.
I feel like being in the presence of these festivals and experiencing it firsthand, it empowers you. It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And you know, when somebody is feeling good, it's hard to think of negative stuff. You know, it's hard to hate. So I definitely feel like it would make an impact.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it would 100% make an impact. I feel like it's very inspiring, very motivating, and I feel like it allows people who have the open hearts and minds, though, because in order to feel that impact and feel that spark within you, you kind of have to be open to it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like there are going to be Filipinos who would go into that festival and still hate, but those aren't, I hate saying this because we get this, that we're not true Filipinos, but to me, that's not being a true Filipino.
You know, and I was thinking the same thing, because it's like, at that point, if you're not feeling this festival, if you're not coming out of it feeling empowered, excited, happy for your people, for your culture, then there's something else going on within. It's kind of like, what is that word when they call self, like homophobia for self? Like it's kind of like internalized homophobia. It's, so I guess it would be like an internalized hate for being Filipino.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. It's just like, if you're going to go to a Filipino-American festival that, you know, is all about celebrating our culture and our rich just tapestry of history, and you come out of there hating and thinking Filipino-Americans are dumb for doing this, or they didn't do something right, or the Tinikling was all wrong, or whatever it may be.
Why were they dancing hip-hop to Tinikling?
Yeah, something like that. Then, you know, then you're just a hater at the end of the day, and that's not the type of energy we want in our community anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
Now, what's really cool about these festivals, especially if you've never been around Filipino people and you've only heard of them, you've only seen their food, maybe tasted their food, but you've never really immersed yourself. You know, I feel like it's a good first impression, and a good way for those people who are not experienced with our community to immerse themselves in a natural way. You know, these are just Filipinos being Filipinos, whether they're, you know, laughing about some, you know, random thing that they experienced, or they're eating food, they're dancing, they're, you know, sipping Hennessy. You know, I mean, they weren't sipping Hennessy in the park, but, you know.
They could be.
They could have been, you know. But, you know, like, I feel like it's just a natural way for people to be immersed in Filipino-ness. And, you know, it's no pressure. It's just there for you to experience. Free.
Definitely. And you said free. Pistahan was a free festival. It was in the middle of downtown San Francisco. There were no gates. It was free. There was no ticket vendors or anything. Like, I saw this guy who was in line for senior sisig, and he had an AMC theater uniform on. So he's probably on his lunch break or finished work and wanted to get some Filipino food. And I think that's so awesome. So whether you live in, you know, the area, or, you know, you work in one of the buildings around and you just wanted to grab lunch, that was a perfect way to possibly try Filipino food for the first time, or maybe see a cool traditional dance performance, because there was a big stage.
Yeah. And I think too, like, when I look at Filipino traditional dance, there's so many parts of that, from the dress to the moves to the sounds of the instruments to the looks of the instruments, that look like other Asian cultures, Southeast Asian cultures. And, you know, if you just think about that, you know, there's connection there. It might not be in our books that are accessible to us. We really got to go dive in and research, but there's a connection between us and other Southeast Asian people, you know, and that sparks thought in itself. Like, whoa, that looks the same. We sound the same, even language. When I listen to someone speak their language who's from a Southeast Asian country, there's the delivery, the cadence sounds similar to some Filipino languages.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's great. And, you know, like you said, it's an easy way for people to just happily stumble into a cool festival. And it was 2 days long. It was a whole festival over the weekend with performances and food. And the cool part was the parade about it, you know, the parade aspect, street closures and that whole thing. I think it was just so awesome. And there were so many people in the parade, so many floats that, you know, we got to see, and it was just so awesome.
Yeah. And there's people not only from San Francisco who are a part of this festival. There's people who've traveled all over the world just to be at Pistahan Festival in San Francisco. Yeah. From vendors to talent to organizations, artists.
Yeah. Man. Like Maarte, they're from Seattle. they flew, whatever it may be, came all the way out here to San Francisco to be part of this big festival. I bought a hat. You bought a shirt, supported our people. But, you know, it's really, really cool.
You know, often in our podcasts, especially, people look at us and they say, you know, they ping us as Filipino culture vultures.
Okay. Yes.
And, you know, how we get clout off of being Filipino and having a platform, you know, but the thing is, like, none of that exists with us, and it's never existed with us because, frankly, I don't feel like I'm at a point in my Filipino culture to even get clout from it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense.
You know, and like, you know, doing this podcast, I'm learning more about my culture. When I go out to these festivals, I'm learning more about my culture. When I, you know, am around the Kumu community, I'm interacting with people who I never thought I would ever interact with ever in life. And those are people in my Filipino community.
Yeah.
You know, but for once in my life, I actually am starting to feel connected. And that's something that's so crazy to admit. You know, from going to not caring when I was 12, 11 of my Filipino-ness and wanting to research about it, to actively putting myself in spaces of Filipino-ness.
Yeah. Yo, that's beautiful as fuck. No, because I relate and I feel it in my heart and my soul though, because like, same. You know, I grew up knowing I was Filipino, but not that it was a significant part of me. And, you know, there was no care to learn about my culture or learn the reason why certain foods are made a certain way or, you know, why my family speaks Tagalog or, I mean, Ilocano and, you know, another part of the family speaks Tagalog and all these other things. And, you know, going from that to even, you know, when I went to college, my college hosted the friendship games. And if you don't know what friendship games is this huge festival slash
it's like Filipino Olympics.
Yeah, Filipino Olympics. So all of the Filipino clubs from other colleges, they get together on campus and they just have this Filipino Olympic, and there's food, there's performances. It's this huge gathering of Filipino-American college students to hang out and to connect and to possibly hook up. You know what I mean? But when I was in college, my early 20s, I didn't care about it. I didn't want to be there. And my school freaking hosted it. Like, yo, like if I could go back in time, I would 100% attend the Filipino Olympics, friendship games. I would 100% partake in it and be part of it. And I think that's like one of my biggest regrets of school is not being part of the friendship games. But also during that time in my life, I wasn't connected yet.
Yeah. I feel like maybe you weren't ready.
Yeah,
and that's why you weren't interacting with them.
And like one of the reasons why I wasn't connected, I just kind of had this salty, yucky feeling in my mouth and soul about being Filipino because of the Filipinos that I went to high school with. Not that they were mean or rude, but they had this certain type of esque or aura about them that I just couldn't connect with. I think mainly it was because they all spoke Tagalog and that just wasn't me. They were also very, you know, thin, light-skinned people, and I had more thick, kind of more coarse hair, definitely more brown. I just like didn't fit in with who, you know, just them in general. And I just, when I went to college, I was more so, I'm going to study, I'm going to do well, I'm going to graduate, and I'm going to do other stuff.
You know, they should really have an adult friendship games.
Yo.
Why are we just keeping it between the kids? Like, we're old now, and I think it's time for the late bloomers to get in the mix and kind of get a second chance at friendship games. What's up, Jaren? You know what to do.
Yeah. Or Jaren and Kumu, Tessa, all of you guys, we could live stream it.
Hey, who knows? We might be the hosts of Kumu friendship games.
Wait, side note though, can you imagine all of us old asses trying to do Olympics?
Okay,
we would break our backs.
This isn't like the vault or like the uneven bars. It's not, you know, it's like fun games that old bodies can handle.
Because just imagine us and I'll be like, oh, my back. You know?
Hey, we'll see. We might do like the ping pong twerk challenge again.
Oh, yeah, that was a lot.
But yeah, man, we're stirring conversations in our community and, sparking thought in individuals who, maybe have never felt like they were supported in that thought, we always love to hear all sides, and I think what people don't realize is every conversation that we have with each other where we're open and willing to listen to each other and share our sides, it's just like a pin drop in the water.
Yes.
And that little ripple can reach places that we wouldn't even think of.
That's just like kind of like, just the community in general. If we all stand together and create one big movement together, man, we can move mountains. We could do so much, but we got to do it together. And some people are just a little offbeat. Wow, just because I can't dance. I definitely didn't get that Filipino dancing gene. But yeah, like you said about, we're stirring the pot, we're holding these conversations that are so important. Yeah. And when people say that we're doing this just for clout, it's really funny to me, especially because we definitely do it with the goodness in our hearts and like just being genuine about it. Especially, if I had a podcast like this when I was in college, when I couldn't really fully connect with my Filipino culture and feeling so alone despite being surrounded by Filipinos, I feel like I would have been more open to attending friendship games or joining a Filipino sorority. And that's why this podcast exists. We've gotten DMs from people who say that they relate to our podcast, or they felt some type of way or felt alone and thought they were going crazy over their thoughts about how they were feeling of being Filipino-American, but listening to our podcast, they realized, I'm not so alone. I felt that too. I'm not feeling crazy, or because I'm disconnected now doesn't mean I can't feel more connected later in life.
Definitely. And one of the things I really like about this podcast is we're just having a conversation, Carla.
Yeah.
And, sometimes when we're busy with everyday life, I just want to hear someone I could relate to on no pressure level.
Yep.
And this is that space for that. And I'm glad that we have created this and people are responding, and it's about us. It's not about, it's about us, not about us as in Carla and I.
Yes, absolutely.
So with that in mind, like Pistahan and other Filipino festivals around the world, we have this responsibility to make a strong impact and representation of the Filipino community to the people around us, and it's also a responsibility as us, as Filipino individuals, to make that same sort of good impression on the world and represent our community well with our actions, our thoughts, our words. It's kind of like when you go to the family party, right? And I'm sure all of us has that one annoying ass tita who's gonna show up in her
Louis Vuitton,
her Fucci purse, because it might not be real. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Fucci or Gucci, depending on.
I was like, oh, is that like a new kind of brand?
The fake one. Oh. Showing up with her purse and just comes out and spits the top gossip she could think of. At that point, everybody in the family, whether they say it to their face or not, they're gonna be like, dang, is Tita so and so gonna be there? And everyone's like, yeah, damn. It's like at that point we want to avoid her, or we don't want to genuinely interact with her. And that could be an example of how people can receive us, in the public. If we don't put on a good impression of our people, then that one person's experience could be really bad. They could not want to be around Filipinos anymore, not give them the respect, treat them like shit. It could lead to discrimination, to hate, and just kind of butterfly effect into, those types of negative behaviors towards us and our people.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a trickle down effect. So say like this guy is walking down the street and so happens to come across one of those titas or a really bad experience with a Filipino. And to them, they're like, damn, Filipinos suck. And then they grow up and they have kids, and then they instill that hatred towards Filipinos into their children.
And even in like the face of like discrimination and hate, if we feel empowered of ourselves and empowered together as a community, like nothing can deter us, you know? And I feel like that's something that our community and our people can really be, is strong. You know, we ain't no bitches.
No,
you know,
absolutely not.
But when it's just patches of strength and more weakness, we're going to break.
Yeah.
You know, and I just see more for us. I see more for us as Filipinos, and I see more for us as Filipino-Americans here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're as strong as our weakest link. And I feel like the weakest link now are actually the cruel Filipinos out there who say that we're not Filipino, whether because we're in America, or they could be saying it to Filipino Australians, Filipino Canadians, Filipino Indians, whatever it may be. And I feel like those people are the weakest link, the people who spit and talk about, oh, pure Filipino because I live in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And, you know, completely negating and invalidating Filipino experiences from all over the world.
Yeah.
Because of, I don't know, whatever it may be, jealousy, envy. It could be like internalized hate. I don't know what it is. But if we can get them to sway their minds, then we could be so strong and we could be so powerful and do such amazing, beautiful things.
You know, what was special about this Pistahan Festival for Carla and I was it was not only Carla's first time at Pistahan and my return, but it was our first time on a float at Pistahan. And were you really waving like that on the float?
No, because I was working.
Because she was working.
And not like working, you know what I'm saying? Like taking photos.
Yeah. So, Carla and I were both working the float. And we were able to be around so many dope artists of Filipino descent. We had Guap, formerly known as Guaptad 4000.
Little chicken adobo.
We had Adrian Marcel, CRSB from the islands of Vallejo, Kiana V, and Ruby Ibarra.
Oof.
Who spits fire.
Yes, who we actually got to do a Kumu with.
Yes.
A few weeks ago. That was top tier, and it was such a great conversation. Yeah,
I love speaking with Ruby. She is so smart, and she has like the biggest heart. She is so chill. She's cool as fuck. Man, shout out Ruby Ibarra.
Yo, speaking of Ruby Ibarra, so she has Pinay's Rising. Real quick, I'm just gonna shout her out real quick because what she's doing is so beautiful and so amazing for the community. So Pinay's Rising is a scholarship program where they raise money so that way they can help Filipino-American girls, women, go and have a higher education. And I think that's so dope. Education is so important to Ruby. I know education is so important to many Filipinos. And so I know that college is so expensive. It's ridiculously expensive. And the fact that Ruby has this program so that way we can uplift Filipino women so that way they can get an education, I think is so dope. And I think that's, you know, just one of the coolest things that makes Ruby who she is and makes her like just this top tier Filipino.
Yeah, she is not all rap. She is not all talk.
Yeah.
There's substance behind her. And to me, she is honestly a pure example of a modern day Filipino woman.
Yes, exactly. And if haters out there are gonna like just say that Filipino-Americans aren't Filipino because, you know, we're out here or whatever and we just don't care about the culture, take a look at Ruby's profile and
listen to her music, look at her performances. Man,
this is now cracking the Ruby Ibarra.
Cracking. And for me, when I work events, I'm completely immersed in what I'm doing. That I'm not even at an entertainment event. I'm just at work because that's what we're there to do, you know? And so I don't always take the time for myself to enjoy the festival, the show, whatever I'm working. But, you know, there were moments where I was able to kind of snap myself out of the work mode and really take a look and see the artists that we had on the float. Just looking at each and every one of them, how we were all different shades. We came from different towns, different cities, different countries, different experiences. And I was just like, man, this is Filipino greatness. I'm looking at the crowd, you know, as we're going down Market Street in San Francisco and seeing just people singing to the songs that the artists are singing, waving, enjoying the music that we're playing from the float. And then when we finally get to the festival and we're, you know, on the stage, seeing the crowd enjoy the music, seeing the vendors pop up, and I'm thinking like, damn, like this is FUBU. For us, by us.
Yes. You know, wow.
Don't ding me, FUBU. And that was just so special to see. Like, this wasn't done by anyone else but us.
Yes.
Filipinos did that shit.
Exactly. And Filipinos been doing that shit, Pistahan specifically, for 29 years. And I think that's freaking amazing. And I loved exactly like just being on the float and getting the moment to kind of snap out of it, snap out of work mode or volunteer mode, and kind of see the people around. It was great. And what was awesome is it wasn't just Filipinos waving out on the street and, you know, enjoying. There were non-Filipinos there too, Bay Area natives, like really enjoying. The thing about the Bay Area is you're gonna be friends with a Filipino whether you like it or not. You know what I mean? There's so many Filipinos out there that you're gonna know a Filipino very closely. I mentioned that I was there for the radio station that I worked at. And what's really cool about the radio station that I work at, and if you're in the Bay Area, go ahead and give it a listen. It's 99.7 now. My radio station prioritizes diversity, and not in a, oh, we're checking a box of diversity, but like for reals, And I know this because my last job said they prioritize diversity, but they didn't. They really didn't. So as a woman of color, as an Asian American, as a Filipino woman, it makes me so happy and so proud that my station sponsored a Filipino festival and that we were part of it. What a lot of Filipinos in the Philippines don't fully realize or may not understand is that being Filipino in America that prioritizes white people is very hard. It is very difficult. And I know that many people are making progressive steps forward to change those things, but it's still very hard. And it feels nice to be seen. Visibility is so important, and the fact that I get to walk into the offices Monday to Friday and know that I feel seen, I feel heard as a woman of color, as a Filipino-American makes me so happy. And it makes me really happy that I get to put a hand and share my culture, not just with my coworkers, but on a bigger platform. Our radio station is huge in the Bay Area. And they have a huge platform, and the fact that this huge platform with thousands of followers and, you know, millions of people listen to this station, we get to say we're going to be at the Filipino festival, and like, I don't know, that just like warms up my heart and
makes you feel good.
It makes me feel so good. Yeah.
Yeah, and these festivals are meant to make us feel good. You know, and you know, like we said, you see so much culture, you see the art, you see the dancing, you see clothing brands. Even I saw a vendor that had traditional Filipino like fabric. Ooh. And she made it into like backpacks, wallets. Yeah, you know, like that's stuff that's really important to see. And like for those people who don't believe Filipino-Americans are Filipino, this is what's being sold to us. This is help to educate us to learn about our Filipino-ness, to gain that knowledge, to gain that passion for ourselves. You know, and we were walking around, I saw this one vendor. The thing that caught my eye was this mushroom sticker. And if y'all know me, maybe if you don't know me, but you don't know this fact about me, I fucking love mushrooms.
She does.
Like anything I eat, I would love a mushroom on it. Cooked, uncooked, oyster, button, cremini.
Fried,
shiitake,
sauteed, baked.
I'll take it all. Mushroom soup, you know, and so I love mushrooms. The only mushroom I haven't taken though was the psychedelic kind. So, but one of these days I plan to dive in and indulge myself in the experience. But, you know, this mushroom sticker caught my eye, and so I pulled over and I see Carla looking at these prints. And she starts to tell me, oh, I really like this print. I would like this tatted on me. And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And then so I make my way around to her side, and I start, you know, seeing all these beautiful prints and artwork that the booth artist made, and started asking her questions and asking her like, you know, what is this one? What is their name? And she starts not just telling me their name, but say, for example, how Aphrodite is the goddess of love. She wouldn't just say, this is Aphrodite, the goddess of love. I drew her because I thought she was beautiful. She was telling us the name in whether it be Tagalog or Bisaya, it was the goddess and what they were the goddess of. And she would explain to us the mythical story of these gods and goddesses. And, I asked her, how do you know all this? And she just said, I researched, I looked this up, and to know that she was able to tell these full on stories and be so informational as an artist. She was a storyteller in writing, in voice, in through a paintbrush.
Yes.
And she was young. She was like our age. She wasn't like older and like in her 50s telling us about, Filipino folklore and mythical gods. Like she was telling us as a young person who just researched.
Yeah. I think what's really important, you said it, she is a young person. And, it reminds me of kind of like that trope they usually do in TV and film, but I feel like it really segues into real life, where you don't want to listen to your elders' stories because it's just like, oh, it's just grandma talking about whatever. But those stories are important. Those stories is your heritage. That's your history. That's your family's history. And I feel like the more that young people know about history or Filipino folklore, we can continue talking about it word of mouth or through that artist via painting almost. And I think that's just like really important. I asked her if she had any Ilocano goddesses in her repertoire, but she didn't have any because she's still researching. But I am Ilocano, so that's like what I want on me. And so, and I know I can't wait to like find more information about it.
What's an interesting thing that she said to us though was that she had a really hard time, or is having a really hard time, finding Ilocano folklore and stories. So I actually want to know why that's the case. So if anybody out there who's listening to the podcast has that answer into why it is really hard to find Ilocano stories and folklore, please let us know.
So as we wrap up this episode, Jazz, what do you want to see the future of Pistahan be?
Ooh, what do I want to see? I actually think I want to see Pistahan as kind of how the music festivals are set up. Because it very much has the foundation of a festival. There's vendors that are selling goods, like a marketplace. There's vendors that are selling food, but more so like a festival setup where the vendors are around the space, and then there's a center stage that exists and it's bigger. There's a full-on production. We get to see full or like half sets of the artists who are performing, not just like one song or a snippet of a song, because you're only allotted so much time. And I would like it to be a mix of traditional dancing. They have so everyone is actually focusing on them, if they wanted to. Because I feel like a lot of dancing was kind of put off to the side, and they're not really being seen. And I want everyone to get like an equal opportunity to be noticed for their hard work, their talents, and showcasing Filipino culture. And then lastly, I would really like to have more vegan Filipino food vendors out there to showcase that, like the porks, the chickens, that's not what only our food can be made with. We can still have our flavors and our good dishes made in a way that's a little more health conscious and just made out of veggies, baby.
Yeah, definitely. I think for the future of Pistahan, even though this is my first one, but I definitely see a lot of potential of ways for this festival and parade to truly, really elevate. I don't know how many years it's going to take, but I would love the parade to be on TV kind of like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Everyone gets up early in the morning, watches it on like ABC, NBC, whatever it is. I want people who may not be able to make it out to the streets of San Francisco to be able to watch it on their TV. I want people to be able who, like, for example, my parents, I told them that I was going to be part of this float and be working on it and around it. And it would have been cool if they could like live stream it on like YouTube or see it on a major network and watch it, so it allows for family from all over the place to see it. I would also love to see, not just a local artist, but I would even love to see some, bigger artists, like maybe Saweetie there or her come and, do a surprise thing, or maybe, I don't know, just put a hand into it. Like, if I don't know if they have like a board of directors or anything, but imagine if Saweetie was on the board of directors of Pistahan and got to, lend a hand in the entertainment side of things. Or
definitely.
If there was a chef, like Chef Reina, for example, she's a Filipino chef who specializes in vegan Filipino food. If she had her hand in the food aspect of it, things like that. And then even just having a committee of even locals and sharing ideas, I think that would be really cool. And then, of course, I want to see Pistahan grow bigger and bigger and better, but I would love to still keep it either free or the tickets very like under $5.
Yeah.
And of course, all that money can go donated to back to the community in some way.
Or like a charity in the Philippines.
Exactly. Yeah. So because I love that Pistahan was free, and I love that people who were off, working nearby could just come by, or people that didn't realize the festival was happening could just stroll on in, and everything like that. I mean, of course, there is a little bit of like a small fear in that, as in, you never know who's going to come in and try to hurt people, but I would still love to see Pistahan be free, and maybe with a little bit of beefed up security.
Yeah. So Pistahan, if you're listening to our podcast, come on and hire Carla and I for next year's festival. We'll make it happen.
Yes. And I think that wraps up the episode.
That was a good way to come back.
That was a really good way. If you want to follow us on social media, we are at Cracking the Coconut on Instagram and Facebook. We are at Cracking the Coco on Twitter and TikTok. Definitely join the TikTok because we do post clips, and that's where a lot of the conversation's happening. So you're going to see some crazy, outlandish comments, but also some really kind, sweet things as well. But yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to check out our website, it's there. www.crackingthecoconut.com. And so I think that wraps
it up. Don't forget to check us out on Kumu every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Philippine time.
Cool. Well, we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening, guys. All right. Peace.
Bye.